Three, two, one, here we go. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian the Rain Man Lucas. Welcome to RAINMAN'S Take, observations on the world we live in. We're going to take a deeper dive into topics of interest to me, including politics, current events, history, popular culture, and social issues. You'll find the diversity of topics refreshing. In our clickbait, soundbite society, we rarely get the whole story. RAINMAN'S Take interviews interesting people as well as peeling back the onion on specific topics, all with the goal of getting people to think more deeply about a subject. My guest today, Nick Shevillo, CEO of Simplifi. As the tagline of the company says, making advanced connectivity simple. And we'll probably talk a lot more about that down the road in this interview. Nick has been in the software business for about 30 years. In that time, he's been everything from a salesperson to a consultant to a software entrepreneur and finally as an investor. And I brought Nick on today to talk all things high tech, all things connectivity, especially in today's world. So Nick, thanks very much for joining me. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, why don't we do this before we really get going? Just give a little bit of your background, how you came to Simplifi and what Simplifi is.
So got involved with Simplifi about 8 years ago from an investment standpoint. We invested in the company, and probably 5 years ago is when I took an active role. I had a seat on the board, but became the acting CEO, and now I'm actually the primary CEO. We removed the acting. So now I'm the CEO of the company. We've financed the company for the past 8 years, brought in a brand new management team, and now we're off to the races.
Nice. And we'll get to that in a second. Exactly what Simplifi does and how you envision the current business environment, how you envision Simplifi kind of working within that environment. But a little bit about the company. You manufacture everything in Asia, is that correct? You also have offices over there as well, is that?
Yeah, so we manufacture in India, which is part of Asia, and we actually have our own physical software development office in Vietnam.
Okay. What has India opened back up yet for you? Has that
Yes, we just started to start manufacturing about 2 weeks ago. So it's been a slow progression of trying to bring staff in, have people start the lines back up, bringing the actual bill of material and the goods into the factory, getting everything organized. But it's starting to stand itself up and be able to start delivering product here shortly.
And so how long was that down for? I mean, obviously everybody else in the entire world was in the same situation, but how was that? How'd that handle your or impact your supply chain?
It was significant. We really felt it happened probably in the March timeframe. Very similar, maybe a couple of weeks after we shut down pretty much here in the U.S. But we were really feeling the impacts of this before, because a lot of our bill of material, as I mentioned previously, does come from China. And so with some of those goods like resistors and those types of things, when they shut down in January, February timeframe, that really impacted us just from a bill of material standpoint, having the parts to be able to then manufacture. So we've been feeling this pretty much since December, January.
Damn. And let's just hope there's no forced shutdown. Second one coming up in the later part of the year.
Yeah, no, that would not be. I don't think that'd be good for anybody.
Anyway, it's crazy. And then, and this is probably a perfect time to ask about it because of all the stuff that you're hearing about the border conflict between China and India right now. But I would imagine the geopolitical environment probably doesn't impact you very much. As long as that plant's open, as long as you can get your product. And that goes with all the other offices that you have throughout the world. I mean, how much of an impact does that have, or does it have any?
It has minimal impact on us today. One of the things that we are doing, and we've been working on contingencies about setting up manufacturing either in the US or within North America, so it's a little bit closer to our main customer bases.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work in the US and in Latin America. That's our primary area of our customer base. So having it here more centralized to our customers in time, it will reduce our lead times and those types of things to deliver to customers. So we've been looking at this, not because of the COVID, but it's accelerated our, taking a look at this and maybe making some moves quicker than we typically would have.
That brings up a great point, and that is, that seems to be a trend right now. A lot you hear, like Larry Kudlow talking about on the news, people wanting to repatriate manufacturing back to the back to the United States. Is the company that you use in India, is that an American company or is that an Indian company? And how would that, in that particular instance, how would that impact you guys? And what would that look like bringing that manufacturing back?
The current manufacturer that we use is a US-based company. They're headquartered here. But each one of their facilities operates as an entity in and of themselves. And most of the contract manufacturers, not all of them, but again, I can't speak for all of them, but the majority of them, each operation is their own P&L, and so they operate somewhat independently from that standpoint. But no matter where you manufacture, so if let's say we brought it back and we start manufacturing in the US, there's all the customs and tariff issues that you need to evaluate, and obviously the cost to manufacture. So there's several different variables that have to play into your decision-making process of what's the right spot for us to do the manufacturing. So we're evaluating that, but there's several different variables that we take into account. One of them being the tariffs.
Okay, and as much as you can tell me, are you looking at in the United States or more likely Mexico or South America somewhere?
Mostly we're looking right now, there's 3 areas that we're looking at, but 2 of the main are Mexico and the US.
Gotcha. What, as somebody who deals in international business, what do you think of that idea of bringing the US manufacturing back, or the manufacturing that's overseas, bringing that back to the United States? Do you think that's realistic, and what's that going to take, you think?
I think you're going to have to look at it for each industry. I think one of the things that I'd really like to see is, even if I do my manufacturing back here in the US, really the majority of the components are still made over in Asia, right? And so that's really going to be a decision point for where does it make sense and what materials should be brought onshore for manufacturing. There's some things that really I don't think make sense to bring back. They're very low cost, low margin type of business. Pharmaceuticals might be something that is more pressing, right? Some things that are maybe a little bit more national security type of concerns, right? Those types of things might make more sense. But there's other parts where it makes more sense to make it over there. And I don't think everything has to be made here. I think the global economy works well. And but there are some areas and advantages to bringing it back.
Yeah. And that's funny that you bring that point up. I was having a conversation last weekend with a buddy of mine who works for a law firm in DC and does a lot of work helping clients kind of access the national government as a client. And that's exactly what he was saying. Some things you can leave over there because it just makes economic sense to make them over there. But other things, and you hit it on the head, other things that are national security in nature, we need to think long and hard about that. And I asked him, and I'll ask you as well, what's that dividing line? Is Apple building their phones over there? Should that come back, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's another thing of capability to be able to do it, and then the volumes, right? And so, everything, there's so many different factors that tend to go into play. But it would be, I mean, those types of manufacturing facilities that are needed to make phones, they could be made here, right? But at the volumes and how quickly could you make that transition? That I don't have the answer to. But I think those are some of the things that you need to look at. And I think, when you start looking at general consumer products, right, there's the fundamental economics of what's a customer willing to pay. Is someone willing to pay a little bit more to buy something that's made in the U.S.? What are the advantages or disadvantages? What I typically see is it would be great if it was made in the U.S., but the consumer doesn't want to pay more, right? Everyone's always looking to be, low cost, high quality, made in America. And so, trying to get all three of those can be somewhat challenging, but would love to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, and maybe there's a middle ground, right, where you can provide 2 or 2.5 of the 3. Yeah. So, we're really looking at that, and maybe companies have to look at it. Does it make sense to take a little bit less margin? But things are so difficult right now economically for businesses. It's really looking at every little detail to try to figure out how to be the most profitable to maintain, your wherewithal here moving forward in these challenging times.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and depending on what polls you listen to or you read, at least currently right now with the way our relationship is with China, a lot of, I think the majority of the people would be willing to pay a little bit more, but who knows when you go to the Verizon store and the iPhone costs 75% more than it does right now, that might be a difference.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
Yeah. So in pre-production, you had brought up a really cool thing that you guys are doing down in Mexico, and I want you to talk a little bit about it because I think it's fascinating, and I think it has definitely a future, hopefully, here in the United States. But talk a little bit about what Simplifi is doing with your group down in Mexico, with the countryside schools down there.
Yeah. So we won a contract. It was back in 2018. With the Mexican government to deploy Wi-Fi into rural school systems, places that didn't currently have access to internet at all. So these schools did not have any type of access to the internet. And so we were chosen as the deployment router for being able to provide that Wi-Fi solution in the rural school system. So it's something that we're very proud of. Thousands and thousands and thousands of schools have been deployed with this. And so it's really amazing when you actually can see a child's face that have never been able to access the internet to finally do it, and to know that they're going to get opportunities to have access to information that they just didn't have before. Yeah. And, you bring up an interesting point. We're working very, very hard with partnerships that hopefully we'll be able to announce here in the short term to do the same thing here in the U.S. To me, education is one of the big things needed to level the playing field, right? It's the ultimate equalizer. If you provide someone with information, and then that can lead into opportunity, and they're qualified to be able to take on jobs and responsibilities. It's an exciting thing, and we're right at the heart of it, and something we're really proud of.
And when you go down there, is it Simplifi in every schoolhouse? Is that how it works? And then are there cell towers all over the place? Are they building cell towers? Is it all satellite based? So
the majority of them are satellite based, right? So in some of these areas they're so rural they don't have the cellular. They do have cellular connectivity. They have SIM cards that have been put in there. So the idea is that as deployments of cell sites roll out into these areas, they'll be able to make the transition over to those those networks. So it's a mix. And, you know, we're not in every school yet. I mean, there's 130,000 schools. So it's a large deployment. And then obviously with things with COVID now, you know, how those things will start moving forward,
Right.
You know, is yet to be determined. But, you know, we're in, I think it's over 20,000 schools right
Really?
now, currently deployed, roughly. I'd need to.
Wow, that's right.
And
Is
exact numbers.
is that a contract with the government or with the Mexican telephone company down there?
So it's actually through the government was the one that awarded it.
Yep.
The government is the one that is providing the resources and the funds for the schools. And then we work with selected partners that they've chosen to do the implementations. Because we're one piece of the implementation. So we are the cellular router. But some of these schools, they need to have a satellite put on the roof and those types of things. But in some areas where they maybe do have these types of this infrastructure, you know, going to deploy a Simplifi unit as the router takes them maybe 2 to 3 minutes to do a full implementation, which is a massive thing when you're starting to look at deploying thousands and thousands of schools, right?
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. Now, you mentioned earlier that it sounds, are you in talks right now to try to make that happen in rural America, or is that just something that you think we need to have and you guys would love to get to be a part of that?
Yeah, so we are working with some of the organizations around rural carriers in general.
Okay.
We've also, you know, have been working directly with some of those rural carriers, and we'll have some announcements around that here in the short term as well. But to me, the school system and what we're doing down there from a deployment standpoint, I think the same thing applies here in the U.S. to urban areas, but you know, people that you know, the socially economic impact, negatively impacted areas can't provide the type of connectivity and solutions to their students, and so I think the same thing applies in the urban areas as well. And then you saw with the deployment of you know, home learning and those types of things, people don't have the infrastructure, and so that's going to be a really important part of the solution set that we're going to bring to the U.S. So it's just not a rural solution; it's also it's a overall solution that we want to bring throughout the educational system in the U.S.
And what is that? I mean, as much as you can tell me, what does that look like? Does everybody go and buy like a Simplifi router at the T-Mobile store and plug it into their house? I mean, how do you envision that happening?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways, but what we're doing is really looking at going to the school systems, right, and working with the various organizations to be able to put bundles together, so we can help with some of the funding around it. Maybe the educational system could help with some of the funding, some of these programs out there that we can really put together a bundle that not only, it starts with the connectivity, right? Yeah. If you don't have the connectivity, everything else is secondary, right? And then also having some of the software tools that sit on top of their devices and give them the connectivity, the interaction, all the things that are needed, the collaboration, all those types of things that are needed. We also have tools that help support that as well. But really foremost is getting everyone connected, right? That's the number one thing, and having it be a high quality connection.
Now, is that, you hear commercials all the time for HughesNet, you know, HughesNet out in the countryside. Now you can get everything. Is that what you're talking about? Like a HughesNet type of thing, or is it?
Well, it would be, what we're talking about is either with cell carriers, it can be through satellite, it can be with fixed wireline potential solutions. But the fixed wireline is, you know, you need to have the infrastructure already there. Yeah. With cellular, it's a little bit easier to drop in deployments. Especially in urban areas, and most rural areas now have fairly decent cellular coverage. Satellite can be a part of it, but what I found in some of these areas, when you start looking at satellite, you really deal with some latency issues, which really, in layman's terms, equates to speed and disruption. And so really our focus is primarily around cellular for these deployments.
Nice. That actually brings up a great, another very current event going on right now, and that's Elon Musk's that whole Starlink constellation of satellites he's trying to establish there. And I know that I don't know much about it, and I know that you have just kind of a cursory look at it as well. But is that what the goal is to basically to envelop the world with small little satellites for that connectivity? Is that the route we're going, do you think?
Yeah, so I don't know too much about what his program is that he's doing. I think it's called Starlink. Yeah. But I think the concept around it, and the concept's been around for a little, what people are trying to do is low orbit satellites, right? To be able to provide high speed internet to the globe, right? One of the challenges when you start talking about cellular, you need to have the towers and those types of things, where they're saying in satellite, you throw these up there and then you just need the receiver and you're ready to rock and roll. That's kind of the concept. But I think the real driver for Elon is to be able to provide high speed internet globally, and really to fund getting to Mars. So I think that's the driving factor around it, and basically become an internet service provider globally.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to put up a lot of satellites.
Well,
I think the estimate was somewhere in the range, his full deployment was looking somewhere between 24,000 satellites. Yeah. So, and he's shooting roughly 60 up at a time.
Yeah, it's like he's setting up an artificial asteroid belt around the world.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be, before we see it mainstream, I think it's going to be a little bit. So, and then I think with the advent of 5G and where things are coming with cellular, the evolution and what's going to be capable with connected devices is going to be pretty tremendous. So it's going to be exciting, to see how our world transforms, where we're sitting 10 years from now, and the capabilities of what we were able to do and what we are doing.
Yeah, it's funny that the skeptic in me, when I hear him doing stuff like that, and I was a huge, I was glued. I had the TV on in the background when they launched the Falcon heavy rocket a couple of weeks ago, when they launched it. I was totally into it, and that got overshadowed just by current events. But to hear what he's trying to do with the satellite stuff, the skeptic in me, well, the optimist goes, that is awesome. And the skeptic in me goes, this is right out of a James Bond movie. He's one of those crazy, insanely brilliant villains that is somehow going to take over. So we'll see. You're right. Who knows where this is going.
Well, it's actually, SpaceX is a pretty interesting concept, right? Because of the reusability of the rockets, right? And so what typically would cost to launch a satellite into orbit, the cost of that can go down exponentially. And so now all of a sudden, what was not, capable because of funding, now all of a sudden starts to look a little different. Yeah. And so I think that the concept is fantastic. But now I don't know what it's going to look like if we had 42,000 satellites orbiting the U.S. What does that even mean? I don't even know if anyone's really thought about that. Yeah. I think currently we have 2,000 satellites deployed throughout the world. So imagine 42,000.
It's literally like we're going to be in a dome. The Earth.
Yeah, it's going to be like Thunderdome.
It's amazing. Speaking of that reusable rocket, the one that launched the Dragon capsule, the two astronauts to the space station, that same rocket fuselage, they used this the other day to launch the first group of those Starlink satellites up there. So that's unbelievable. So it's amazing that at one time it feels like the world's coming apart at the seams, and the other time we are literally watching the future unfold in front of us.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I think, there's definitely, there's going to be a new normal that comes out of this for sure. What that looks like, I think is yet to be determined. I think it's going to evolve over the next year, maybe two, but there is going to be definitely a new norm, and technology is going to be at the core of enabling, uh, you know, life to evolve, move forward in this new normal.
Yeah, and that actually brings up an interesting question for you, and that is, and you mentioned it about 5 minutes ago about the whole 5G thing. I mean, where are we with that? Who made it? Who owns it? Because it seems like the Chinese are wanting to say that they control it. We're obviously wanting to say that we control it. What's going on with that? I mean,
well, so 5G is spectrum, right? So it's frequency. The real reality is there's been auctions that have been put out, but really the race to 5G is creating the base stations that can connect to the towers to enable the carriers to be able to provide it as a service. And then the second part of that is then having the devices that can access that, right? So I would assume your phone is, if it's not the latest, it's probably not even close to being 5G enabled. It doesn't have the chipset.
You know the answer to that.
I know. I was trying to be nice. But when you start looking at, there's chipsets, so there's modems that need to be able to access the frequency, and those modems need to be able to then connect to devices and be in devices to be able to enable. But the reality of it is they're trying to create, and this is a great analogy for you out in San Diego, is, imagine the 5 and at rush hour trying to go back downtown, and that being a 128 lane highway, right? You're not going to have the traffic jams if you keep the same type of traffic on that road, right? So it's going to enable a lot, you reduce latency, so the speed's going to be tremendous. I mean, you're going to be able to, I think theoretically you can download a full high definition movie in seconds. So, it now lends itself to autonomous driving and all those types of things that need just fraction of milliseconds response times. Those are the types of things that I think are going to really benefit from the 5G networks.
And I would assume Simplifi, you guys probably are easily upgradable to all that within your.
Yeah, so we have our roadmap has 5G obviously in it, and we'll be providing 5G devices. As soon as we see that the market is going to be ready for it, and for what we do and where we fit from a user base, we will be in line and step with what our customers are going to need. Gotcha. So yeah, we're excited about that as well.
Nice. So what is your ideal customer, and then how do you see the new, the last couple of months, everybody's been working home and everything's teleworking. How do you see Simplifi fitting into all that?
Yeah, so when we first started the company, when I got involved about 8 years ago, and then more of an active role 5 years ago, the real focus was around small to medium-sized businesses, right? And our whole concept was being able to provide high-value, enterprise-grade types of solutions, but the small businesses that didn't have the IT infrastructure team to be able to constantly install, maintain these types of services. So we created a plug-and-play solution around this to be able to provide that high-quality networking, security, redundancy. In today's market, if the internet goes down for any reason, people can't work, right? And that can be in the office or in a home office. And so having that reliability, so being able to use a fixed wired line and also have cellular as a backup in different setup scenarios, but let an end user like yourself do the installation and not have to have a technical person do it. And so that's kind of the premise. Fast forward to where we are today, you know, enterprises are starting to look like small businesses. People are working remotely. People will continue to work remotely. People are working in smaller groups. And so being able to provide secure networks in the home, and also be able to get off their primary network. So like at home, a lot of people have their children at home, people are streaming Netflix, it's not a secure network, and they're trying to do conference calls and do emails, and you know, the quality of the network was significantly below what was needed and is needed. And so there is going to be a definite push for having separate networks and those types of things. And it, to me, it accelerates us into that space, because that's exactly who we are and what we do. And being able to give an enterprise the ability to be able to do these deployments and monitor and manage them all remotely, but have the end user, have a marketing professional or a finance professional do the installation at their house with not having to have an IT person come out.
Awesome.
That's significant.
Yeah.
So we're excited about it. So it's really, it's definitely broadened our potential customer base.
And I know that was about a month ago, you did a webinar with a couple of other small business owners. What do you think the new normal is going to look like in business? I mean, are we going to go back to our offices, or how are we going to do that?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be offices, but how we utilize the office and will we have as much office space? Honestly, I don't see it happening. I see that, like, even large companies, you know, they're going to have to social distance. So there's going to be a significant cost for, you know, reorganizing floor plans and then scheduling people to come into the office, and maybe staggering work schedules where people come in Tuesday, Thursdays, or Monday, Wednesdays, and everyone works remotely every other Friday. You know, there's going to be something to it. And then you start looking at these urban areas. I just think of New York City. You have the commute into the city. Then you have all these high rises and getting people up into the office space. So there's a lot of things that I think need to really be thought through properly and managed properly before we see everyone back in the office. So I think there is going to be people coming back into the office, but it's not going to be what it used to be. I don't ever see it getting back to that.
Which is crazy, because we have a lot of friends, mutual friends, that live in downtown New York City. And I mean,
yep.
If you cut the amount of people working there in half, or whatever the number is, that's going to be a bizarre scene downtown.
It is. I mean, and you know, I've probably spent more time in New York the past 2 years just for work, and then also some of the social things that even you and I have been a part of. And it's amazing to think about how that city is going to change. And when you see it on TV today, I mean, it's just amazing. But, you know, trying to bring people back, as simple as restaurants. I mean, how many restaurants have we eaten in New York that, you know, are no bigger than our college dorm rooms? Right? So it's like, everything is going to be impacted dramatically in these urban areas because of just footprint and the ability to be able to generate enough revenue to cover leases for those footprints that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah. No, and that to me seems like it's going to be, and that's everywhere. I mean, that's everywhere on earth, you know?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting because real estate has always been a huge driver of the economy. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It'd be interesting. So how does that work then? So let's say a company's got, after people have decided that they're just going to work from home, can they literally, with a simplified product, can they literally go buy it at the store and plug it in? Or does the company buy a bunch of them, connect them there, and then hand them out to all the people? How does that work?
So they could do either or, but but most likely in that type of situation, what they'll do is the company will buy them and then deploy them out to the customers, so they'll be able to monitor and track who has what type of data plans that they potentially are on, and how they want the networks, how they want their VPNs set up, the security, all those types of things. But we put together a program that really makes that simple for an enterprise. So VPNs are virtual private networks, so they're secure networks that don't really go out to the public access. So, but being able to set those VPNs up centrally and then deploy them, and the person plugs it in, they see it pop up and it's set up and connects right into their network, is something that we've developed. So we make it really, really simple and easy to track for a large enterprise.
Interesting. And so a guy like you who basically has offices all over the world, but you used to travel a ton to go visit all those offices. How has it been for you doing everything remotely? I mean,
it's been different. I used to travel probably 3 weeks a month, and seeing customers, but also seeing employees, and that I thought that was equally as important, especially as you're growing a business. Seeing what's going on in the field and interacting with people. There's no substitute for seeing it firsthand and being there for a couple of days to really see what the true feel's going on in a certain area. So that has been somewhat lacking, but we've done it with video conferencing. We have social hours that we do on video calls and those types of things to try to make it fun. And I was just on a video call with our team in Vietnam as they were at dinner, and it was 9 o'clock in the morning here, and was getting passed around a dinner table. So you just have to adapt, and that's really what the challenges are. And but it's a lot different than it used to be.
I can just see, somebody's, I'm sure, is thinking about this right now, is having an avatar, So like you and I have this call, but I just beam my little image over to you, and I'm sitting right next to you at your table in Florida.
Right. Like Luke Skywalker.
Exactly. That's, I guess, the situation is going to probably bring about a lot of those type of changes. And like you said, who knows what it's going to look like in 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, and that's the whole thing with, artificial intelligence and virtual reality and 5G, right? 5G is going to be at the backbone of enabling those types of services to be utilized. And so how we utilize them, is yet to be determined, but it's coming. Yeah. That's for sure.
And you guys, your investment group seems like you're pretty forward thinking. I mean, this whole thing, Simplifi, seems pretty revolutionary. What do you guys, and obviously you don't have to tell me in detail, but what do you guys see? What are you guys looking at that's going to be the next thing 5 years down the road, or is it even out there yet?
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that I'm starting to see is, and I've seen this over the past 30 years, time to market and opportunity costs, the time to market is shrinking so quickly. Yeah. You start to look at, what it took 10 years ago to get technology out versus, you can get to 19 million people very, very quickly with the internet and social media and the way things are. So your time to market is shrinking significantly. So that S curve is not the long S anymore. It basically goes straight up and over, right? Yeah. So, we're looking at various things that we can leverage, obviously internet-based, things that we can put on from a service-based model standpoint to add to the portfolio. So that's really where a lot of our focus has been. And then we've also, we've spent some time looking at ways of in energy and in those types of things. So those are really the two areas that we've mostly focused on, probably over the past 24 months.
And so what do you guys do? Do you go into, like, you're meeting with these guys who have these ideas? I mean, are they still in college labs? Are they out kind of the little incubator spaces? I mean, who's that mad scientist that's coming up with the next thing?
It's all the above.
Really?
It really is all the above. Where we've found a lot of success is people that have had some work experience, not some idea that's in a college incubation lab. Though, we do have an intern program. We have a couple of college interns working for us right now, and they have some really kind of interesting ideas. We've had a former intern that is hired into the company now full time, and really some really kind of innovative ideas. But our whole employee base has some really kind of cool ideas. Yeah. We're actually going to be launching a product that is an idea of one of our chief engineers. So it really comes from all over. And then we have people that are always knocking on our door for investment and those types of things. So we listen to everything, and then we really try to look at where we can help. And where we have strong networks to be able to, if we do see a good idea, how we can get to market quickly, right? I mean, that's the real time to market, and development costs, all those types of things need to be monitored. But that S-curve is something that it has to be at the forefront of anybody's mind these days. You have to get to market, and you have to get there quickly.
You're seeing that the traditional lead times, or lag times, I should say, especially with like the pharmaceutical stuff, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, you see it in our situation. It's, especially when you're building products, pharmaceuticals, those types of things, and there's a number of different things that go into making it, a number of different raw materials or goods or whatever it might be. You're only as good as your longest lead time part or ingredient, whatever it might be. And so those are some of the challenges. And pharmaceuticals, you have then all the approvals,
and government,
everything on top of it.
Government that blows everything up. So I'd be interested, because you're dealing so much with internationally, do you ever have to worry about intellectual espionage and intellectual theft and any of that sort of stuff that you hear a lot about? The Chinese are kind of notorious for that. Does that come into play at all with you guys, or not so much?
Yeah, no, we definitely factor that into all the equations we have. A lot of the stuff that we've done, we either have patents on or pending patents on. But any of the trade secret type of stuff, all of our software, we keep that all internal. So only employees of the company have access. And then even in that scenario, very few employees have access to everything. They have parts and pieces, and then the way that we structure things, so it gets brought in. So there's only a few people that really have access to everything. But yeah, that's always a big concern, especially when you're in the software game, right? So you have to just be cognizant of it. But you can't, you can't paralyze yourself with it either, right? You just have to be very, try to make the right decision and then press forward, right? Because that, again, I go back to that S-curve and the opportunity. You've got to go, you got to get it out there, right? So you have to build it, and you have to build it quickly. And, that's why we keep everything internally. But, we've got great employees and, a great trust base with our employees. So, but it's something that we've definitely thought about and have structured our company around the way that we deal with it.
Interesting. All right. So, where do you see Simplifi going? Where do you see this this connectivity platform, where do you see it going over the next couple of years?
Well, I think it's going to be the backbone to everything that we're doing and moving forward. So, I see more and more homes with 5G, kind of the cord cutters, all those types of things, where it's going to be necessity. And then with this new evolution of work from home, we have a slogan we just put out with a partner today, work from anywhere, right? So it really is, you can work from an RV, from a boat, you can work anywhere. As long as you have connection to the internet and communication tools, you really can be productive. So, we are kind of just at the beginning of the hockey stick in our mind for what we've positioned from our core competency and being able to deliver over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're excited about it.
So that dude in the streamliner that's sitting by the river in Wyoming, as long as he's got a signal, he can be on his laptop and the router has got the VPN and everything right there. He can do it. Yeah.
So I give you an interesting example. The business partner was up in Minnesota, and his son-in-law, daughter, bought a home in Montana, and they wanted to go out there. And he's a professional football player, the son-in-law. And they were thinking about flying out. They have a young daughter who getting ready to have another baby, just brand new. So now they have 2 babies. Do they want to get in a plane?
Yeah.
No. Even if it's renting a private plane, they don't want to do it. So they rented an RV. And but he's a big gamer, the son-in-law. You need the internet for gaming, right? And then you've got young kids, that want to stream things and all those types of things. So we sent him a Simplifi, and we're going to be launching a video with him in it. He now signed with the Cincinnati Bengals, so he's doing really well right now. But I'm using it as an example that we provided him internet from Minnesota all the way to Montana. And then when he walked into his home in Montana, it was the first time he was actually there. He plugged in the Simple, took it out, plugged it in, and he had internet in the home.
Really?
Yeah. So, it's that type of use case. So there's really 2 different use cases, 3 different use cases there where, we were able to do it, and he was able to do the installation, and he was able to game while he was traveling across the country.
Oh, that's amazing, dude.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So it's cool. So, we're wrapping solutions around RV, around marine, right? Same thing goes for boating. Boats, when they're typically, a couple miles offshore, they have access to cellular networks still. So, the same thing applies for marine.
Yeah.
And
what about when they're in the middle of the ocean, like the middle of the Pacific, sailing to Hawaii? Is that still? That's when you want the satellite connection. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and that's where Elon Musk comes in with his.
But being able to then plug these various things in and then connect all your devices, right? So not only your radar and those types of things, but now your television, you can do Netflix, or you can stream music, right? Or you can do the gaming like they want, right? So it's all these things. You could have your conference calls, right? You could communicate with your team, right? So you could virtually, it all starts with that connection and having a high quality, secure connection, but it's simple, easy to deploy, right? I don't need to have 3 technical people come out and do an installation and reconfiguration and all that, those types of things. So we really think that there's a massive use case across industries and across verticals. So we're excited.
You guys need to somehow tap into that Geico commercial. Simplified is so easy. A caveman can do it.
Right. We think it's easier. No.
Speaking of the satellite and Elon Musk, you know, I always remember seeing, and I always thought it was a cool concept, and I didn't understand why it never took hold. But in all those airplane magazines, when you're flying, you always see the advertisement for, let's put this little thing on each aircraft, so that, you know, there's 10,000 airplanes in the sky, they're all beaming signals down, kind of like,
Right.
you know, low orbit satellites. But now Musk has completely blown that business model out of the water.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see how quickly, and really what his go-to-market strategy. I don't know enough about it to talk about it intelligently. So, but I mean, it's an interesting concept. But to have that many satellites, and how are you going to deliver them? And so, I mean, I think that once they get positioned and dropped off into space, then they still need to, get positioned higher. So I think it's, takes several months to get them up and into position. And so we'll see how it goes.
But, I mean, the future is now, one more thing about that, and then we'll take a U-turn here. Watching the SpaceX, watching the launch, the guys are in these really cool, svelte-looking spacesuits, right? It looks more like Austin Powers than regular astronaut. And then you go in, then you look inside their capsule, and it's literally just one big flat screen.
Yeah.
And just 50 years ago, 60 years ago, you were in this tight thing, in this huge Michelin Man outfit, and you had buttons and knobs all over the place. Now they just got a flat screen. It's incredible. The future, we're witnessing it. It's awesome.
It's like going into a Tesla.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you a question. Did that make you, with your pilot background, want to say, maybe I should have been an astronaut?
Well, dude, you remember me in college. I don't think I had the grades to become an astronaut. Yeah. The airplane that I flew, compared to that thing, and compared to what those astronauts flew, it's like a tricycle. Not even a tricycle. It's like one of those little big wheels that the little kids ride around on.
Yeah. Just be happy that you were able to fly helicopters.
Well, exactly right. So yeah, that shit just fascinates me. It's watching me. It's watching the future. So all right, let's hear it. You and I. You're in Florida. I'm in California. California is buttoned up tight still. We're starting to loosen up a little bit. COVID-19 related stuff. We're just starting to be able to go to restaurants now. You guys have been open in Florida for a while, but now we're hearing all this crap about new spikes in Florida. What's it like on the ground over
there? So things are starting to get back to normal, but it's, I've eaten at restaurants a few times. Definite the social distancing. You can actually now sit up at bars, but there are groups that are 6 feet apart. So they're definitely doing a good job. And I'm friends with one of the managers of a local restaurant. I was talking with him last night when I was in there, and he was like, they're having a great quarter.
Cool.
So he said things are really, going well for him. So that's exciting that it's getting back, right? So, but we are hearing about the spikes. And so at my golf course, we just heard that one of the employees had tested positive. So they've shut down all the dining facilities at minimum for the next 2 weeks there. Dental hygienist that just was diagnosed or tested positive for COVID. So we're starting to hear a little bit more about it. But nothing's really slowing down from that standpoint. People are still trying to be, I think people went out and they were getting relaxed and they thought everything was good. I think people just are now starting to put their guard up just a little bit more, just like, okay, we got to make sure that we're wearing masks properly, washing your hands. Don't go in and, give people hugs or slap high fives and those types of things. So,
no, it's, I mean, DeSantis, I thought, did a great job in Florida, and it just, I can't even imagine if we have to go through this again, what's going to happen to the economy.
Yeah, I just don't know how. I mean, I just don't see how we could go back to what it was before. I just don't know. Shutting down the country for 3 months, it's just, it would be devastating. I can only imagine. Yeah. When you hear Powell talking about, the economy and the stimulus and those types of things and what we've done, I think he's done a tremendous job trying to stand things up the way they are. People genuinely want to get back to work, and we're excited about it. We want to get back growing and on pace, because it's had a significant impact on our business not being able to manufacture new product and deliver it. So that really definitely stifles our ability to grow.
Well, we shall see. We shall see, my friend. And listen, This was good stuff.
Appreciate you having me on.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for your time. Good talk. I think a lot of the stuff that you're right at the forefront of, is gonna have a major impact in shaping how we look in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, we're excited about it. We're definitely excited about it. And then, and by the way, congratulations on the new studio look. Looks sharp.
I appreciate that. Probably, it's coming. Now we just gotta stop doing teleconferencing so I can get people in here for real.
Yeah.
No.
Well, when you have when you're allowed to do live in studio sessions, we'll do a part 2. Perfect. And I'll come into the.
I love it. You're more than welcome.
And then I want to get access to that keg upstairs.
Hey, absolutely. What's mine is yours, my brother. All right. This was a great conversation with Nick Shevillo, CEO of Simplifi, talking about the future of technology. So I'll leave it like this. If you've been in the military, the police, the fire departments, or the first responders, if that's you out there, thank you very much for your service. Stay safe. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching RAINMAN'S Take, Observations on the World We Live in. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow RAINMAN'S Take on Instagram at RAINMAN'S Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.